So after the French Revolution, we're going to see this meeting called the Congress of Vienna. And at this Congress of Vienna, all of the great European powers came together to try to restore order after Napoleon was finally defeated. And they feared future revolutions spreading throughout Europe. And so the whole goal of this Congress of Vienna was to maintain a balance of power in Europe. It was a very conservative group. They wanted to put monarchs back in power, which they did, and try to keep any one nation of Europe from becoming too powerful. And so it actually worked for several decades afterwards. They were able to keep this general balance of power in Europe. Another side effect of these revolutions was the growth of ideologies. And so what we're talking about here are political ideologies. And what these ideologies did is they proposed that their particular political or social way of organizing things was ideal or superior to others. And so from these revolutions, we're going to see an expansion of things like conservatism. And so when we talk about conservatism, typically conservatives resisted change. They were against these revolutions. They said that basically society should change very slowly. They wanted to keep traditions, keep the aristocracy, and keep the existing systems in place. And so the Congress of Vienna was a very conservative movement. Then we see the growth of liberals or liberalism. And so liberals support change as it is a means to progress. And so a lot of middle-class people supported these liberal ideas. They wanted to reform the political structures and the economic systems. They supported things like freedom and equality and written constitutions. Some of them supported democracies, but not all. They didn't necessarily have to support democracy. And so they believed in change, but kind of controlled change, right? And so those are your liberals. Then if you go a step further, we're also going to see the growth of radicalism. And so radicals typically supported all the ideas of liberals, but they wanted more. They wanted to take it a step further. Many wanted outright democracy. Many of them wanted universal voting rights. Many of them wanted freedom and equality extended more to the lower classes. And so those are kind of our three main ideologies that emerge out of these revolutions. So we're going to see some smaller revolutions spread throughout Europe. And it's going to begin with the Greek Revolution. The Greek Revolution, even after the Congress of Vienna, most of Europe kind of supported the Greek Revolution because Greece was under the Ottomans' control. And so Greece is going to lead this revolution. They're going to overthrow the Ottomans to gain their independence in 1827. And so even though it was a revolution, typically Europe supported it because they were overthrowing a foreign power. We're also going to see the spread of a series of revolutions that break out across Europe in 1848. And it starts in Paris, in France, where they basically drive Charles X, the last French monarch, out of power. They expel him out of France. And that's going to spark all these other smaller revolutions throughout Europe. Belgium, Italy, and Poland are all going to push for independence. We're going to see uprisings in Germany and Prussia. In Austria, their king is forced to flee temporarily. And in the end, all of these uprisings are pretty much put down. However, the ideas that they fought for would persist. And what we see is that instead of pushing for these changes through radical revolutions, they began to push for these changes through more gradual means, that maybe we can still achieve what we want, but in a more gradual, controlled way. And so the ideas persist, they just go about them in different ways. So when we look at the limits to these revolutionary ideas, when we look at who really benefited from the American Revolution and from the French Revolution, and to an extent, all the revolutions in Latin America, and these revolutions of 1848. The main beneficiaries were your kind of upper middle class men. And the idea of freedom and equality did not spread all the way down. For example, women were typically left out of most of these movements. Even though they played a vital role in some of these revolutions, freedom and equality did not extend all the way down to women. The other major limit to these revolutionary ideas was slavery. Slaves were not granted freedom and equality as well. Now, the abolition of slavery is going to come much slower. We are going to see slavery abolished in Britain in 1833, in France by 1848, in the United States it wouldn't take place until after the Civil War in 1865. But the idea that these revolutions would extend freedom and equality all the way down to the slaves wouldn't come about. And so those are two key groups of people that really didn't see the benefits of these revolutions.